For over half a century, humans have endeavored to make business a force for good. But is the movement working? Or is it time to explore a new path forward? Welcome to Less Talk, More Action. We are your hosts, Joel Caesar and Owen Barrett, experts in clean energy, net zero real estate, decarbonization, and entrepreneurship. In each episode, we ask provocative questions and share stories from the front lines of sustainability with leaders in science, tech, and business taking real action to design a cleaner, better future. Thanks for joining the conversation. Now, let's get to work. Welcome to Let's Talk More Action podcast. My name is Joel Caesar, the world's undisputed voice of building decarbonization. Joining me as always is Owen Barrett, the founder and CEO of America's fastest growing solar company. Today's guest, Leo Young, the founder and managing partner of Cornell Communities, a private equity real estate firm focused on acquiring and operating manufactured housing communities across the U.S. We had some fun with this one because you and I both have real estate investment experience as syndicators, which is what he's doing. A little bit outside our normal interview, like not so much focused on sustainability and climate, but very related because we're all trying to insert that world into real estate. So I found the guy really interesting. What'd you think?
I thought it was great. I thought it was great to break out of the sustainability talk and go back to our temporary roots of real estate. I thought it was fun. I don't know if people are going to like it because it's outside the climate wheelhouse, but I thought it was a fun interview.
Well, people should like it. And we talked about it on the show with Leo about like, hey, sustainability nerds out there who are trying to influence real estate with your product or your ideas or your vision for the future. You got to know what it's like to be in this guy's shoes. So like,
yeah,
that's how you get your product out there. That's how we solve things, is by understanding your customers. So I think it's good content. People need to learn more about how that world works.
Yeah.
It's not just, the guys that whoever owns the building, the landlords, they're bad guys. They're the boogeyman. It's like, no, it's not that simple. Like you and I tried to do it, and I don't think we were being bad guys.
No, it's hard.
It's hard. Well, let's okay, before we get into that with Leo, let's do a bit. We'll call it, it's very related to the show. Let's put your money where your mouth is. Where in the episode with Leo, we described our experience with launching a crowd-funded decarbonization private equity real estate fund, and how many people in our sustainability green building community who knew exactly what we were doing and worked with us, knew us, our friends, very few of them invested, even $250, $500. And these are people, whining and complaining about no one else out there who's doing enough. And again, you never know what people's personal situation is with, but I found in a lot of situations, like, really? You're the person like saying you want all these green buildings. I'm telling you, you can give me $250 and we're going to go make buildings greener and you're going to give you a return, and just like crickets. So, I know we both had some negative experience with that, but what's your take on money where your mouth is here in the world of sustainability?
Well, I think it goes outside of the world of sustainability. I think it's a problem that plagues like everyone that complains about anything. I think if you want to complain about something and you're not willing to, put in the sweat equity of trying to solve the problem yourself, and you're not willing to invest as little as $250 into something that would try and solve the problem, I think you have no right to complain. I think you just need to keep your thoughts to yourself. And I think the world would be a much better place if people either kept their thoughts to themselves, started businesses to solve problems, or invested into companies that are solving problems. But too often people just sit and complain, and that's all they want to do.
Or they put money in some nonprofit that is probably not very effective at.
Or they put money into things that are like counterproductive to what they're complaining about because they yield higher returns.
Well, it comes back to this. You and I talk about this a lot, and we've attacked it from different angles. And we even, I think, in a recent bit, you did some calculations on this idea of every time you go to Climate Week, you're spending a bunch of money and giving it to some nonprofit. Every time people are going to Davos, people are going to whatever the latest UN event is around climate, the next Paris Accord or whatever, and all the money and time and resources for these grandstanding peacock events where everyone's talking about solving climate change. It's like, imagine if we just took that money and invested in, we talked about it on the show with Leo. We're describing our experience with impact investors who then you get them in closed doors and like, yeah, I want impact, but I still want my 18 to 25% IRR. It's like, well, if you gave us 12 or 10, we could Put daycares on site. We could
Yeah.
freeze rent, but like it's hard to find those people. But then again, they're all out there throwing money at these crazy climate nonprofits that don't achieve much at all.
Yeah, I mean it's so sad, but it's so true. It's I don't know. Maybe like you always say, Joel, we just weren't good enough salespeople. That's what it just comes down to.
Maybe, or maybe it's just this. Maybe if I say it enough, I will eventually myself like stop talking and take action and like launch some kind of thing where it says, "Okay, everyone, every time you're bitching about you want to throw money at climate weeks, instead give it to the Joel Caesar Fund, and I'm gonna go lower energy costs for affordable housing, and I'm gonna put renewable energy on them every time, and maybe my returns won't be 18 to 25%, but I'm gonna give you an option that does represent action."
Well, but people don't get any kind of return when they donate money to these stupid causes. So I feel like it's you got to figure out how to grab the attention because it's not always a return decision. Sometimes it's just like it's a marketing decision. So it's either got to have really good returns or have really strong marketing. Um, I think you should do it.
Yeah, maybe I will. I do a lot of talking on this podcast. Maybe
Yeah, you do a lot of talking.
maybe I need to
Lots
take
of
more action.
action coming from you.
Well, on that note, let's wrap up a very fun bit, and maybe we came full circle, and I criticized myself here as I was trying to take shots at people who wouldn't invest in our fund before. And with that, let's jump into a great conversation with Leo Young, someone taking action. Leo Young is the founder and managing partner of Cornell Communities, a private equity real estate firm revitalizing manufactured housing communities across 8 states. With more than $75 million in real estate transactions, institutional private equity experience, and hands-on operational leadership, he expands access to affordable housing while generating disciplined, risk-managed returns for accredited investors. So, Leo, welcome to Let's Talk More Action.
Thanks for having me on. Very excited to be here.
Cool stuff. Well, based on that intro and what we know about you, you're a little atypical to the guests we usually have on or working on climate tech solutions or policy or the world of sustainability. But we love learning about new things, and a lot of that intersects with real estate investors, private real estate investors like yourself. So lots to learn, lots to dive into here. Should be a fun one. But we always start our guests off with the same first question. Leo, how are you taking action to make the world a better place?
For right now, specifically with Cornell Communities, we're revitalizing and expanding affordable housing. So, we operate manufactured housing communities. There is special kind of real estate. And what we do is that we go in there, we put in what's required and what's necessary to kind of breathe new life into these communities. So a lot of them have deferred maintenance and all that stuff. So we want to give a new life, continue operating, and as such, not displace residents. And yeah, that's how we're doing it. And also speaking of sustainability too, I was at Tesla many moons ago, so could definitely talk more about that too.
Oh, cool. We would love to dive into that.
So Joel and I used to dabble in real estate a little bit before we went our separate ways. When you say affordable, what do you mean? Because one of my gripes with the real estate industry at large is there's a lot of definitions of affordable. Sometimes it doesn't really mean affordable. So what do you mean when you say it?
Yeah, I think that's a good question because affordability is very subjective, right? I mean, like affordability to like a guy making minimum wage versus like I don't know, like a millionaire it's like very different. So affordable in what we mean is just for the average American. So, the average home value in America is around 400. I think this year is around 420,000. So, about 49% of Americans cannot afford a single family home of the average price. So for us, our manufactured homes, they're a fraction of that. They're around 100,000 all in. So this is very doable in terms of qualifying for a loan and actually making payments into something that you'll eventually own. So that's what I mean by affordable.
So are most of your residents, they own the mobile homes? They're not renting?
Exactly.
Oh, interesting.
That's the preference. It's really a win-win because we want to have people just grow equity and build something that they'll get value in over time. They have pride of ownership and surprisingly, mobile home parks like manufactured housing communities, like it feels like a subdivision. People stay there for a long time. They get to know their neighbors. So it's a good way to be.
Yeah, even that term manufactured housing, and then Owen called it mobile homes. That's synonymous when we say manufactured housing?
Yeah, yeah. So mobile homes is like the colloquial term, but legally it hasn't been correct since 1978. So HUD they got involved with it, and they're legally classified as manufactured housing communities. But just like the name's a mouthful, nobody likes saying it, so they mobile home park stuck.
So how do you, maybe you have a different business model than some of the other operators that are getting kind of thrown under the bus because they are, I would say, doing the opposite of making things affordable. Like it seems like there's a lot of groups out there that like to buy manufactured home parks or mobile home parks, but they're focused on raising rent, not getting ownership of mobile homes. So how do you draw that
Yeah.
distinction? I mean, do you try to separate yourself from maybe some other not so good players in the industry that are less concerned with affordability, more concerned with returns, or how do you look at it?
Yeah, there's a lot of misconception about, how these properties work. So the core of it is that not many new mobile home parks are being built. So a lot of these, they're 50, 70 plus years old, and they have a lot of aging infrastructure, and infrastructure costs, they could be a ton of money. We're talking like six, seven figures to bring it up to code or replace certain things. So a lot of these need to be budgeted for because a big reason why people sell is like, hey, they're staring down the barrel of a big capex bill that they need to pay. They just don't want to pay it, so they sell it. They're like, all right, let the next buyer figure it out. So like the next buyer comes in, they're like, well, we need to set this aside. How do we make it happen? If we don't make it happen, then property might get condemned, and like people just have to move out, or we find a way to budget for it. And part of which is like, yeah, I mean, you do increase the revenue in the property to pay for that. So that is one extent. Now, how much you raise it, that's like another question, but that's mechanically how it works. And yeah, the devil is in the details, of course.
So I'll never forget this. When I first started kind of dabbling in multifamily syndications, I went down to Dallas and I was toured a property called Mesquite at Tradewinds in Mesquite, Texas.
Is this
And
when
the
you were
broker,
when you were an LP or when you were trying to buy? You were the GP.
this is like when I first tried to figure out how to be a GP. I toured the property with the listing broker, and he like turns to me and as a point of pride, he's like, "This is the fourth time I've sold this property in 10 years." And I was like, "What?" Like that doesn't even to like an outsider of the industry, it doesn't even make sense. And so when I hear that, I'm like wearing two different hats, right? Because I was a GP. I was guilty of trying to juice the IRR by raising rents. But as an outsider to real estate, you hear that four sales in 10 years. That means that four different groups are trying to get 20% IRRs over 10 years. That means double digit rent hikes year after year after year to tenants. So how do you bridge the gap between trying to be genuine to your affordable housing mission, but also generating market rate returns for your LPs?
Yeah, I think the answer is more complex than that. There's like several factors at play, right? So when you're raising capital, like investors want a certain degree of return. Otherwise, they're like, well, I just won't invest in it, right? So that amount varies depending on the operator, depending on the project. So that depends on also how long you're holding on to the property. And the second thing too, the forward transactions is interesting because commercial real estate especially, there's a ton of transaction costs. That's why the U.S. really incentivizes transacting in real estate, because you have to pay like broker fee, insurance, title agents, phase one engineers, like all this kind of stuff. So like everybody eats, so to speak. So the operator is kind of figuring out, okay, if we incur this kind of transaction cost going in, like how do we kind of make everything make sense? And yeah, I mean, look, the end of the day, it's like it's a free market. Like if the prices are too high, like people won't go there. Like you see in Texas, like what you said, the occupancy rates across the board for multifamily, they're going down quite a lot. They're not penciling out to what people think it can be, which is frankly just the free market at work. And that's kind of how you have to factor it in. And for us, like specifically, like there is no concrete figure like, hey, this is the amount that we're targeting. It's more so like, hey, what's a comparable home renting for in the area? Where are we at right now? What is a path to getting closer to there? Not necessarily leading the market or anything. So it's more nuanced. There is no like, one like rule of thumb.
One of the things yeah, as Owen mentioned, we've invested in real estate together. We were syndicators. I was raising money, friends and family at first, and then we expanded. And it was, as someone who spent a career in green building, that term, like trying to convince developers to do more for the environment than they were going to from the status quo, or trying to convince existing building owners to do retrofits that are going to reduce environmental impacts. Like that world, there's like probably a naive mindset because those folks don't come from investment, they don't come from managing money, they don't come from capital allocation, and there's like the scapegoat is the developer, the boogeyman, the rich guy, the one who can buy the building, the owners, the GPs, like like they're the bad guys in a lot of these conversations. And as Owen and I mentioned, like we dove into this and we experienced how challenging it is, and we were trying to be very mission driven with an affordable housing idea, but also using renewable energy to create value. And some of it works, some of it has been challenging, but it was a great lesson learned and a great way to have empathy for owners and people like yourself taking risks, asking for money, going out there and trying to improve infrastructure in America. So I guess it's a long way of asking or like helping educate. Our audience are going to be a lot of sustainability nerds, and they don't see this world. Like, tell us the story, how hard this can be, and why it's not so simple to just say, yeah, we're gonna, well, and you kind of did it with that answer from Owen, but yeah, we're gonna like make sure everything's affordable and make sure everything runs on renewable energy. Like that's not how America works with real estate.
Yeah, I think it hits on a very interesting point that a lot of people, it's easy to think in hypotheticals and theoreticals like, hey, we should do this, but there's a reason, like you hear these things like politicians like saying, hey, free buses, right? Free buses for all, but like, how do you implement that, right? Like, do you have experience? Like, do you know what the system is set
That's
up?
right. That's right. You're a New Yorker.
And look, it's not as simple as that. Like, people can say it is, but when it goes to implementing, it's like, okay, who are the different stakeholders? Like, what different factors are at play? And like, to understand behavior, you have to understand incentive structures. So like, how are things set up? Like, if we raise costs here, if we like, budget extra for the subway, like what's that going to take away from? If we're going to, spend more on snow plowing, like what's that going to do? So I think like really trying your best, like sort of like philosophizing a little bit, like digging deeper and like playing it out. Like, what is it actually like? That's how you get to the practicality of it. And why sustainable solutions haven't really gotten like as much traction as they should is because like, okay, so when it comes to people like me, like operators, like we got a million things going on, right? And then here's someone saying like, hey, you should look into this, and we're like, why? Well, why would it make sense? Like, how is it accretive to the people that we represent, which is investors? Like, you're their fiduciary. You want to make a good return for them. So like, how does that make sense? And like sometimes it does. There's like C-paced lending. So like there's different tools out there and different instruments to make it make sense. And especially like for the solar projects, like commercial solar can have really, really good payback rates. Like what we're seeing, or like I spoke with someone who's in the solar space, and he was like, yeah, for this particular client, like we're looking at a 20-month payback, and like they signed right away. So, it's
what we just gave a proposal to an affordable housing developer with a 50% return on cost.
Wow.
And they said it was not high enough. And I was like, what's the return on cost of your development? It's probably 9. So
yeah.
I'm with you. Like, I think the right technologies can make sense. I think the sustainability industry at large tries to pitch like the environmental impact over the numbers, and that's why it doesn't get traction a lot. But going back to what you were saying earlier, and I just had this conversation yesterday. I forget why I was having it, but I actually kind of disagree with you in that, like, especially affordable housing. Affordable housing to me is very easy to solve. You just need someone with the balls to bring the money to the problem. So like you take mobile home parks or multifamily syndications. Joel and I were out there all day, every day, talking to as many impact investors as we possibly, air quote,
I was
impact
going to
investors.
say, where's the air quotes
Yeah,
for
yeah, air
impact?
quote.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
all over their website, they talked about how impact oriented they were. And then you get it like on private calls with them, and they're targeting the same high teens IRR that everybody else is. And it's like, that's the disconnect. If someone who is actually interested in affordable housing would just step in and write checks with an expectation of like a 5 to 7% IRR, you wouldn't need to raise your rents as much as you do to hit the returns for the market rate investors. So I don't understand why our, local leaders, when they try and solve things like affordable housing, they don't try to get into the industry, because it's not that hard to solve once you're in it. Like, you see the levers that you can pull, but to your point, people kind of stand on the outside, and they just chime in on. Yeah,
should,
exactly.
Like
Should, or they don't really understand how they'd actually get the impact that they're trying to achieve. But once you get like in the weeds, it's not that hard to figure out how to actually achieve what so many people want.
Yeah, and it's funny, I think it goes into the psychology of money. It's like, we have this notion that like, oh, we want to spend our money for something that's like very aspirational and stuff, but like when it comes time to do it, like, would you actually do it? Like, if you're like, hey, I want to support so and so cause, I want to prevent animal cruelty. Like, okay, write me $100,000 check and see no returns on it. Would you do it?
We experienced, not to cut you off.
Yeah.
We tried to launch this thing called Raven. It was a crowd-funded syndication, essentially. Correct me if I'm wrong, Owen. Is that a simplified way of describing what we're doing?
It was like the environmental Grant Cardone.
Yeah, we're trying to raise money from people we didn't know using marketing, but saying like, give us small amounts of money because we're targeting impact. Here's what we're trying to do, and like, there's probably audience of ours that like we asked everyone I knew in sustainability, green building, people saying should, why don't the bad guys do this more? And I was like, give us $100, give us $1,000, give us $5,000, put your money where your mouth is. Now maybe they're going to say to me, I didn't really trust you, Joel, that you could execute. But
that's not it though.
Part of my hunch was like, yeah, dude, what you're describing, Leo, it's like, yeah, when you ask these people to put their money where their mouth is, like, are they willing to write the check? And it turns out a lot of them weren't.
Our minimum investment was $250 too. Like, it was so small that people who are out there just complaining and saying all these shoulds.
Friends of mine, people in the sustainability community who I know and like, wouldn't give us $500.
$250. It was $250.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, if you're gonna vocalize your complaints about the status quo, like if you can't cough up $250, stop complaining.
well, I mean, Leo, feel free to respond to that. But I also, you're here to talk about your message a little bit.
All good.
I'm on your website, Cornell Communities, right now. You're front and center. Invest with us. You're looking for money. We might have people in our audience that are going to listen to this podcast that have money. So what's the pitch? Why invest in Leo? Why Cornell Communities? Why manufactured housing? Why now?
So the gist of it is that, yes, everything has to make sense financially, right? I mean, we can say, we should do this, we should do that. And manufactured housing is one of those areas that it actually does make sense, both financially and impact-wise, because, financially, like, there are a lot of kind of structural characteristics to the asset class. Like, the demand for affordable housing is only going to go up and up and up. It's hard to get these properties built because it just doesn't make sense financially. Like, a lot of the properties bought are far below the replacement cost. Infrastructure cost alone is far more than just the property's value. So we have this supply and demand imbalance. So it's like we have a strong, consistent resident base. They're going to stay there. They want to make this home their own. They enjoy it. And we, as the stewards, we give them a good place to live. And to do that, coincidentally, turns out pretty good, for investors who are funding these projects. We can get them pretty consistent cash flow. And then, with the kind of amount of just institutional interest into the space, we're getting some tailwinds that, we're able to run good business plans, get investors like, double-digit returns or something higher than that, just depending. It seems to all be working on the surface level for the investors. That's all they care about. But for me on the back end, running the company with partners, employees, staff members, like, it's a lot of work. And there's a reason why people are limited partners, passive investors, because like they care for something, they want a return on their dollar, but like they don't have the time, expertise, or know-how or risk tolerance to take on a project and hands-on like this. So that's what we do. We take that work off their plate.
And
What's
you're looking accredited investors, like you're raising now. Are you raising like deal by deal, or is this a fund? Like, what are we
Yeah.
investing right now?
So generally, it's deal by deal for now. For the most part, it's accredited investors, and for us, we're quite selective with the deals that we take on. We don't want to, to what Owen was saying, like basically like double the rent rates overnight to hit our business plan. Like we have the option to underwrite the business plan and create something that we can run that we're okay running. And for us, like we don't rely on that to get our value. So as a result of which is like we get outbid all the time. We just don't do that many deals, maybe a couple per year. So for a lot of people, and why we say like, hey, join our wait list is like, yeah, I mean, you could be waiting like 6-7 months before we have the next opportunity. So happy to share like resources, make you a better investor in the meantime.
You think there's a demand for like an amenity-rich mobile home park for like young working professionals that can never afford a single family home, but like a cool mobile home park? Not, I haven't seen a lot. I've seen
Yeah.
enough to know I would not want to live in one.
He's got
But
some.
if you have,
There's some beautiful ones on the website here.
Yeah.
are,
They're
like
definitely-
Joel, on like on the California coast, there's mobile home parks.
Oh
So,
yeah,
like,
I mean there's a famous one in Malibu, right in front of the what's that surf
It-
spot called? Yeah, it's like
Barbara
a,
Corcoran lives there. That one.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, like
Yeah,
$2 million mobile park homes. 'Cause
Yeah,
they overlook this
yeah.
one of the best
Crazy.
surf spots in LA.
Yep. So there are, there are some interesting sort of communities like that are more like amenity rich. I know there's like a tiny home community that, they have like common area. They have like a meditation center or something like that. And yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like there are people, in this free market, right? You kind of take risks and be like, hey, can the market bear this kind of product? And like, would it make sense for me to do more? And, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. And that's just, up to your risk tolerance as an operator and an investor and your execution ability and, kind of how the market is.
But
I
you're
got a
like
question.
Owen,
Oh, go for
you're
it.
saying, Owen, so like one of his value propositions, one of their about is like this, what he described earlier, supply and demand. It's hard to build these things now, and there's like an increasing demand for them. So all the existing ones are going to be more valuable, and that's what they're trying to buy. Like, but you're saying buy one of these old ones that looks not great maybe, and turn it into something that attracts young people, as opposed to even on your website, Leo, you described like maybe the demand is going to be driven by fixed income folks who looking for a place to live and maybe in their older age.
Yeah, and I think there are a certain amount of like fixed people on fixed income. I mean, anywhere really, but I think the challenge is that when it comes to affordable, and like you'll hear this term in real estate, like we're lower class A affordable instead of like upper class, meaning
Yeah,
like it's not
workforce.
officially subsidized by the government. So yeah, there's like different options out there, but when it comes to people, they go where they think it makes the most sense. So like, if your housing product isn't really comparable, if it's like way overpriced, they're just not going to be there. As opposed to like, if it is, if there's like a growing economy or something, hey, look, there's AI data centers coming, like a lot of jobs being created. And yeah, I mean, I think for us, as long as people are making like minimum wage, like the lot rent is quite affordable. And that's the benefit of owning their home, because once they're done paying their home, it's just the lot rent from there.
Well, we're getting close to running out of time. I guess I have to ask something. Owen, I'm sitting here. Maybe you have thoughts too. Like, let's bring Leo's world to our world. Owen, you might do this. Like, you could provide your product. Like, what
We look-
what sustainability features should we be pushing to Leo here in his manufactured housing developments?
None, because they're all resident owned. No, it like doesn't make any sense. If you have park owned mobile homes and the park's on the hook for utilities, then it makes sense. But in Leo's model, they're all resident owned, so it's like the split incentive problem for mobile home parks.
Interesting.
I
But
think
RV parks, that's the ticket. Those are all master metered, at least from a solar perspective. I think about that a lot. Like solar on an RV park that's a good combo.
Yeah, that, and I will also add that I mean these are just like ideas, right? Like we have to kind of see how it actually pencils, but to some degree, where you can reduce the cost of electricity for the community, like I mean that could be a service just for the residents. that, we offer. It's like,
Community
hey, look,
solar on a mobile home park.
yeah,
Could
yeah,
work.
All right, well, there we go, Leo. We brought you to our world of Let's Talk More Action.
that's right.
Well, this has been fascinating. I'm super intrigued. We appreciate you coming on.
Of course.
Let's wrap up. We always end our episodes with the same last question, which is, in our world, Leo, sustainability, environmentalists, there's a lot of people that focus too much on everything that's going wrong. We try to be optimists here. So I'd like to end on the question of what gives you hope for the future.
Smart people applying their knowledge in the right ways, and incentive structures being set up in a way that is conducive to that. I'll give you one example, specifically Tesla. So I worked at Tesla close to a decade ago, and the people there, like, customers bought Teslas because they're the most amazing car, and it just so happened to be electric. So, here's this guy. He's like, he started with the thought of, like, I want to make the world a better place. I want to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. How do I do that? I want to make an electric car. I don't want to tell people to buy it. I want people to buy it because it's an amazing car. So then, he created this whole company from the ground up around it, took all the upfront risk, and that's how you do it.
On that note, real quick, Joel, I don't know if you've ever heard this story. I saw this on LinkedIn the other day. The original guy, not Elon, the guy that started Tesla, the way that he started it, he was taking pictures around Palo Alto of homes in nice neighborhoods with two cars, and one was a Prius and one was like a Porsche or a Mercedes. And he basically had the idea that this family is interested in the environment, but they're not going to drive two Priuses because Prius is a shitty car. So they're going to have like one Prius and one fun car. And then he was like, if I can take all the environmental attributes of a Prius and make it drive like a BMW or drive like a Porsche or drive like whatever, then that's the kind of car that this market will buy. And that was like the ideation for Tesla.
I think they were right.
Oh yeah, they're definitely right.
Well, Leo, it's good stuff to end on. We're both Tesla owners and fans of what they've been able to achieve. So again, good to have you. We appreciate you being on the show. Anything? Well, let's give a plug. If people want to invest, where do they go?
Yeah, so feel free to reach out to us on our website, cornellcommunities.com, cornellcommunities.com, or you can reach out to me across social media. I'm Leo Young, LeoYoung, on LinkedIn, or Leo Young Real Estate on Instagram.
And you'll be giving Let's Talk More Action listeners some kind of more shares for their investment, like some kind of deal, right?
Preferred returns.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we have plenty of good, like, educational materials and stuff, just help them become, like, better, more informed investors. And, like, we're happy to share that up front, no cost to anyone.
Great stuff. Well, we wish you the best of luck, Leo. Thanks for joining. Thank you, Owen.
Thanks for having
Thank you to
us.
our audience. You can find Owen and I on LinkedIn, usually actively antagonizing the more talk, more complaining sustainability nerds. You can find this podcast and more great content at letstalkmoreaction.com. If you like the podcast, please subscribe, like, and share with your friends. And until next time, we encourage you to ask yourself, what are you doing to take action to make the world a better place?